All aboard! Welcome to the All Aboard podcast. I am your host, Brandon DeFreitas, and I am here with our first guest of the year, John Canelos. John, how are you doing?
Doing great, Brando. Great to see you. It's been a while. I'm excited to talk some football. Not much of a trash talker, but I'll take some digs where I can. And it's good to be here.
Nice. Well, I appreciate you joining the Dynasty League, and I'll give you a quick introduction for anyone in the. I know we have what we call the Vampires group in there, so we all know each other. But for the other people in the league, John is our fearless leader and commissioner in all things fantasy football for our old PWC group of vampires. So I've learned just about everything I know about being a commish from John, and I want to start it off by getting your evaluation of me leading the ship so far.
Oh, I've definitely appreciated your leadership so far. You've taken some of the things that I did well as commissioner and also avoided some of the things that have hampered my time. And in many of my leagues as commissioner, you tend to kind of make a decision and go with it, which I like the dues, the payout thing, something like that, or like the tenure of keepers and players, where you're just like, nope, this is how we're doing it. I don't care. Whereas I like crowdsource everything, and it creates such a headache. So you do a nice balance of that, and obviously the pod is a big bonus of being in the league. So A+ for Brando, or what is it, a 5 or a 1? You get a 1 in the PWC scorecard.
I'll take it.
I
I appreciate that.
haven't given you a rating in quite a while. Nostalgic.
Definitely very nostalgic. But I think some of the difficulties, especially with the group we have, everyone's very passionate about the rules. And you get 6 accountants in a room, and we're all trying to find the loophole in the rules, who can create the strategy to take advantage of them. So it is a
Exception to the
headache.
exception.
For
In
sure.
tax phrase.
Well, I think we have to kick it off with the big news of the day in the league. Number one, Christian McCaffrey going down with a hamstring injury last night. Absolutely brutal. And I know this matchup was between Ben and Jimmy, who are really tight friends, and it meant something to them. Jimmy loses the first overall pick in our dynasty to a hamstring. That's just absolutely brutal.
I know. Well, based on the text I was getting, I thought it was an ACL or something because everyone was like, oh
Mhm.
my God, Christian McCaffrey. First thing I thought about was this Dynasty League. And I'm like, oh my God, that sucks so bad. Did you
Yeah.
hear background noise?
I do, but hey, I'm gonna have a dog going. You have the kids, so that's what we have right now. So don't worry about it. Not a
Oh my
problem at
God, I
all.
have a very angry baby in the background. But yeah, no, I feel terrible for Jimmy, and that's about as bad of a break as you can get come week 3. It's kind of funny how fantasy and life sometimes ebb and flow. He was on the highest of highs with his what's it called, honeymoon.
Yep,
He gets the first pick, and then
all downhill from there.
all downhill. But yeah, my condolences.
I think you sort of touched on it too. One of the good things is just being a hamstring. It's probably not a long-term career-altering type injury. So for a dynasty league, you look at it and you're like, all right, Jimmy, maybe it's going to make it hard to compete this year, but your number one pick is still looking pretty strong for the future.
Yeah, if you're gonna have McCaffrey in any league, a league like this is where you want to have him.
Yeah.
It's long term. You can afford to take your lumps, deep rosters. He'll be okay. It'll
And
hurt, but he'll be okay. If Edwin didn't snake his handcuff, then things would be a lot better. But it's such a deep league. He would have got picked up no matter what.
oh, for sure.
Had to take a pot shot at Edwin.
Well, it is Edwin's wedding day. So, number one, congratulations, Edwin. We will be there later tonight. And number two, the early wedding gift. So, I guess I can withdraw some of the funds we were going to put in the card. He does have Chuba Hubbard. So, I think that's worth whatever I was going to give him. All kidding aside, though, we'll keep your card together, buddy.
Got you a bread maker.
Oh, nice.
Movie old school. This model? No, this exact one.
Speaking old school, I know you're rocking the Packers for the Lambeau Leap team name.
Lambo
And
Leap.
let's tell everyone, what jersey is it?
This is an AJ Hawk jersey. I've always been an Ohio State fan. I even have the Pens, which sounds like a super front runner thing to do for a Patriots fan. But I was an Ohio State fan since I've been like 6 years old. I've just always loved the red and silver, their uniforms, the tradition. Eddie George was one of my favorite players growing up. And they just have such a great program. We don't have college football to root for in the Northeast. So I immediately latched on to Ohio State. And then the Patriots got good. So it's been a good 20 years or so of football fandom for me. And yeah, so I loved AJ Hawk coming out of Ohio State. And I was always kind of a Packers fan. Brett Favre's my favorite player of all time. Not a popular opinion. And
Wow,
so
especially in this
one of my
area.
favorite players from my favorite college goes to the team that my favorite player used to play for. It was just a perfect fit. Life finds a way.
Awesome. Well, I know we actually do have another Ohio State fan in the league. John Baricelli is another big Ohio State guy.
Nice.
So we have two. You guys might be battling it out for the Buckeye rookies every year.
Maybe it's a John thing. Who
Yeah.
knows? But yeah, I know. Too bad this isn't an IDP league. There'd be so much talent.
Yeah.
But we got the good offensive players too. I wanted McLaurin, but nice.
I will say of all my players on my team, he's probably the least likely to go. He looks like a bona fide stud.
Yes.
Wide receiver, he's got years left. So
Mhm.
definitely the crown jewel of my team right
I
now.
couldn't get him or Edwards or Fields or even Curtis Samuel, like guys like that are
Yeah.
kind of afterthoughts. I couldn't get my hands on any Ohio State players. Oh well, I'll get there.
We'll see with the rookie draft coming up, and the rookie draft, a good segment into our first trade. I want to hear your analysis because I was involved in it. Mind blown over there. But
So
I traded away Adam Thielen to Travers for Travers 2022 first, which is the upcoming rookie draft. Your thoughts?
knee-jerk reaction was that you won this trade in a landslide. I'm looking at it. 31, 32-year-old receiver on the Vikings, who are a run-heavy team. Jefferson's already kind of seeded him as the number one on their team. KJ Osborne's developing. And I'm looking at it. It's half PPR, so wide receivers a little less valuable than in a PPR. I'm thinking, oh my God, Brandon fleeced this guy. Like Travers jumped on the gun way too early. It's so early to trade a first round picks. And I feel like the fantasy experts weren't huge on Thielen this year. Like I remember them kind of labeling him as touchdown dependent and that he was like on the downslope. So I wasn't that high on Thielen. But then I started digging into it. And number one, he's killing it so far this year.
Yeah.
He's on pace for like 120 catches, 1,100 yards, already has 3 touchdowns. And then I was looking at his contract, which I go to Spot Track. They have like all the contract data. And so he has a huge contract, which I didn't really know about. So he's pretty much good for this year, next year, and the 2023 season. So they have a lot of motivation to keep him a part of their offense and get their return on that investment. The dead money, if they were to cut him or trade him before the 2024 season, is huge. It's like 11 million, then 8 million,
Wow.
then 7 million. So it's not like, so I'm looking at it, I'm like, oh my God, Travers might have this like top 20 wide receiver for the next 4 years, 4 years, including this year. So maybe it's a pretty even trade after all. And that's where I landed on it. I think it's a win-win for both players. And Travers clearly likes Thielen. He's had him in a lot of the leagues we've been in. He was the subject of probably the worst drama we've ever had in a fantasy football league. I don't even know what to call it, drop gate or something like that, where we won't get into it, but he was the subject of that. And so I think it's a win-win. One good thing for people like me who are a little afraid to make a move is that it kind of sets the market.
Yeah.
Now we know, we have an idea what you can get for a first round pick and vice versa, what you need to trade to get one. So
Yeah.
it's good for the league. It's good for Brandon. It's good for Travers. It's good for America.
Love the analysis.
How are you
I,
feeling a couple days after the fact? Any remorse?
I think the remorse is in the short term where like week 2 is a little early to make a determination on if you're competing or not. Even if you're 0-2, we have 6 of 10 teams making the playoffs, and there's an extra game this year too. So like there's extra time to rebound. I think I have enough pieces to like sneak into the playoffs. So in that respect, I have a little bit of remorse. I think, the reason I ended up doing the deal was there's a couple ways to look at Adam Thielen, and you brought up the side of the contract, the guaranteed money. Seems like he's going to be there a while. What scares me a little bit going forward is I believe this is Kirk Cousins last year, and Jefferson is a superior talent to me. Osborne looks like he's emerging, and Adam Thielen, like he's a favorite of Kirk Cousins. So if Kirk Cousins isn't around, a lot of those red zone looks that go to Thielen because Cousins is so comfortable with him, I wonder if they're still going to be there. So that's sort of where I'm putting my chips. And I felt like, to me, I was viewing Thielen as a 1-year type thing and didn't see myself as a true competitor. That said, though, this is the beauty of Dynasty too, is it's easier to make trades because the future's also there. So it's not just like I don't know. Sometimes in redraft, it's tough to make a trade because you're like, oh, Thielen's obviously better than this other guy. But in a Dynasty, it's like I could have a different take than someone who's completely reasonable too. And then over time, we'll see how it plays out.
Agree. And yeah, if they ever get a tight end, like you said, those red zone looks might get spread around. So yeah, good point.
Yeah, for this
glad you're not totally regretting it.
I would still do it, if I did it. I think it just kind of like, I don't know. The one thing was, am I selling too soon? Should I have waited closer to the trade deadline? And like you said, I mean, now we have a market set. I think there's going to be a lot of trade activity around the deadline. Because you'll have, if you're one of the top teams around that time, you're going to have to make a decision. Do I go with the Red Sox, do nothing and see if I can compete? Or do I go with the Yankees strategy and actually try to sell it and try to help myself get that championship?
Down.
Bring the farm down. Speaking of bringing the farm down, Mark has no farm, so he doesn't really have anything to sell outside of draft picks.
Yeah, the Tampa Bay Patriots over on Mark's team. Can't believe week 2. It's crazy.
Unbelievable. Well, you put up the highest score in week 2, and I thought that was really impressive.
My team peaked early.
But you are also the winner of the biggest waiver wire edition, which was JD McKissick. I thought $30 was incredibly reasonable. I put a $27 bet, and I thought it'd be nowhere close because honestly, the waivers stink in this league. So I thought that was a very affordable bid for you. How are you feeling about that addition?
Pretty good. I mean, if it was a PPR league, I'd be ecstatic about it. But still, half PPR, if anything happens with Antonio Gibson, value skyrockets. And my bench is kind of weak, honestly. I think I dropped Randall Cobb for him, a total nothing. And I need to build some more running back depth. I have like James White, like Wayne freaking Gallman, like Gio Bernard. I have Mark Ingram. So it's just my bench running backs are so terrible that I have to take any shot I can just to build that depth. And I think I still have $60 of fab left. So I'll take 1 or 2 more shots throughout the year. And like you said, waivers are tough. So I'm feeling okay about it. I'm not going to use them this week or probably anytime soon, but plug him in for a bye week. Maybe I get lucky and he has one of those 6 catches for 80 yards type of games that he had last week. So I feel okay about it. I don't think I overpaid, which is good. Early season, you never know. Like I saw a lot of Elijah Mitchell bids last week where it's like $80, $100, and like the next highest one was like 30. So I didn't get that. So I felt good about that.
Yeah.
Believe me, I've been that high bid before, especially in like baseball leagues. We're betting like 150 a fab on Jared Kelenic, and then he strikes out 1,000 times and gets sent back down. Crossing over the baseball league. Still a thing, Brando. No, but I
Hey,
feel pretty good about it.
nice. Yeah, I mean, I was at 27, so $3 isn't an overpay. And speaking of the baseball league, one of the reasons I thought McKissick would go for more is because Edwin went straight deja vu all over again. And instead of stashing pitchers like he does in our baseball league, he stashed running backs. His running back depth is like gross. He's like 6 or 7 deep. And the rest of the league, I have like 3 guys, and then I have a pile of crap on my bench. So I is he open for trades? I don't know. I know it feels like it takes a month to negotiate a trade. Luckily, it's a dynasty.
If I had to guess, I would guess Edwin doesn't make a trade this year. And we're up to 3 pot shots at the guy who's getting married today. So
Par for the
let's keep
course.
it going. But yeah, that's the thing. He dropped McKissick, and the second it happened, I think you called it out, and we're like, oh my God, he's gonna go for half of somebody's fab. And then he had a huge week. But yeah, Edwin's running backs are outstanding. Who does he have? He has like, so he's Juju, Zeke, Dalvin, Montgomery, David Harris, or Damian Harris, sorry.
He's got
That's a
Pollard on the
big-
bench, Javante Williams on the bench too. It's absurd. So he's got the pitching strategy. Whether or not it works in the dynasty, we'll see.
Yeah, my running backs are horrible. Miles Gaskin is my third RB. Jeez. I was at the end of the round, and I feel like runs kept happening between my picks, and I would just have to kind of like
Yeah.
steered into wide receivers a lot. Yeah. Edwin can afford to lose McKissick. Most teams couldn't.
Yep. Well, there's one more waiver I do want to point out. I think it's interesting with the super flex in terms of like anytime a starting quarterback becomes available, they're a hot commodity. We saw Taylor Heineke go for $16 last week. The market went $12. Jimmy McAllister on Davis Mills this week looked decent last night. So, who knows? He might be the Texans guy long term. So, I do think that's an interesting thing going on each week because of the super flex. Some of these players that you'd have no interest in a normal league in certainly like push up the priority.
Right. It really makes it interesting. And people whose strategy going into the draft was like Edwin. I think your brother did it where they took a ton of flex depth and then they kind of waited on QB. It almost makes me think that was a smart idea because more quarterbacks are becoming available than high-end running backs or wide receivers. So maybe they got it right.
Yeah, and to your point too, I saw a stat at the beginning of the year after our draft where 16 of the 32 teams had new quarterbacks this season. And like that's a ton, but like I do feel like there's a lot of turnover each year at the quarterback position across the NFL. So
Teddy Bridgewater this year, Darnold. But yeah, that Davis Mills pick could work out really well. $12 if he's their starter next year. If they get their run game going, keep Brandon Cooks.
Yeah.
He could be like a solid third, fourth QB for Jimmy for 5 years.
Mm-hmm.
So pretty good ad. I love Taylor Heineke. Tried to trade for him. Travers didn't like my offer, but we'll see. I have good QB depth, so it's more of a fun trade offer. I don't really need him, but we'll see. Maybe I'll be back.
Well, Travers is being pretty active. I know he's been putting guys on the trade blocks left and right. Maybe we'll start talking about some of those trade block people. Recently, Travers put Paris Campbell, Jacoby Brissett, JJ Taylor on the trade blocks. He had just picked up Brissett, 1-game starter. For me, I'm a little worried about Paris Campbell's injury history. Like, love the player, Ohio State guy. He's supposedly available for a 3rd rounder if you want to go in at that price. But then JJ Taylor is a little interesting because the running back depth I think is a little thin. He's shown some burst in New England. Just a matter of, Damian Harris looks like the guy there. You have Stevenson, James White. I wonder if Taylor will ever get his chance, but he does look like a Dion Lewis type talent.
Yeah, for sure. Travers, he's putting these low end guys, and at first I was interested, but then I saw the Thielen value, and I'm like, okay, I'm doing the math in my head, and I'm like, no way, Paris Campbell is worth a 3rd. And I guess I don't want to jump ahead, but like the KJ Osborne one, is
Yeah.
he worth a third now that Thielen's worth a first? It's crazy. This trade, the ripple effects of the trade you made
Yeah.
are real. And
Just
I'm
trying to,
wondering if
I'll go ahead.
I was just wondering if there's going to be more player to player trades or more player to pick trades
Mhm.
or combination. But yeah,
I think, yeah, it sort of depends on the situation. And I think there are going to be more trades as like we truly see who is out of contention versus in contention. And then do you trade an established guy for like an upside guy? When do you make that move? So definitely, I agree. Like, I feel like there's going to be more pick trades than player to player trades, but it'll be for sure interesting to see. And the only reason I say that is like, I feel like if like, if I'm your team at the top here, you have some young guys on your team and like you went like heavy for current year, right? So like any of the young guys you have, like you're not going to want to sell them. Like you don't really want to go that much into the future, right? Like destroy the farm completely, Dave Dombrowski style.
right. I can't trade away any young assets. If I'm trading anyone, it's going to be these wide receivers I have. Keenan Allen's, the Tyler Lockett's, Cooper Cups, the guys who are like 28 and up.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's tough. I had a weird draft. As you remember, I had a baby on my lap during
Yeah.
this baby glares there. And I had gotten my COVID vaccine like 3 days before. So I was like feeling groggy from that,
Oh man, yeah.
piling up the excuses for my inevitable 6-8 finish. No, but it's this trading thing is really interested. I'm definitely hesitant to make a move because I'm nervous about screwing something up, but I will be getting more active as I get more comfortable, get my sea legs.
Nice. Love it. One other player I think I'll highlight on the trade block, Melvin Gordon, another player that Ben put on the trade block. Probably more of a current year type piece. Um, can't really see much going beyond this year, but interesting for any teams that realize they're competing and they need some additional running back depth.
Yeah, for sure. I'm definitely interested in him. And it goes to show how quickly the running back landscape changes in
Yep.
the NFL. Melvin Gordon's like this stud for the Chargers for 4 or 5 years. Last year, he was great. It's like a fourth round pick. He performed pretty well. And now he's kind of an afterthought guy. And he's only like 28 years old. So it'll be interesting to see the market. Speaking of Edwin, I think you said he has Javonte Williams. That's a
Yep.
team that should be trying to acquire him, kind of
Mhm.
nail down the Broncos backfield. If one of them gets hurt, great. If not, you figure it out. So it'd be interesting. Are you going to make an offer, or or did you already decide to sell? You're only selling.
It's interesting you asked this because I told John Baricelli in our league this the other day. I said, it might look like I'm a seller. I feel like I just kind of took a deal that I liked at the price I liked. And
So,
I'm still going to try to compete, but like the bottom line is it's going to be very difficult without Adam Thielen. Marvin Jones is my number 2 receiver, just to give an example. And then my flexes are kind of upside young receivers I like, but none that have a target share who have developed into like consistent starters. And I like my team against like, I guess it's a good time to talk about power rankings in our final, 10 minutes or so here. Like, the way I view the league based on my power rankings, I know you're upset with the number 1 spot, but I see 3 teams, yourself, Mark, and Edwin. No, yourself, Mark, and Travers, who have really, really good flex starters who are like, top end players. And I just can't see my team competing against that consistently. Like maybe I could sneak in and get lucky for 3 weeks. That's always a possibility. Um, but I'm not really putting my chips there. So I sort of see that as the top. We have a little bit of a middle tier with, Ben, John B, and Edwin. And then I'm kind of at the back with like Will Tam, where I just see my team as like good players, could happen, but more looking towards the future than looking towards the present now.
out of curiosity, where did you have the big Stefanski? Is that John?
I believe I had him at 6. He was 9 in the initial one, which was definitely a mistake on my part. And I gave him the rocket ship emoji. If you go to the league
Gotcha.
page, there's a pinned option, and I had the power rankings pinned,
Really?
as well as the podcast for anyone. So if
Pinned
you,
messages. It's loading. I actually really like his team. His running back depth is a little sketchy, but Chris
yeah,
Carson's a stud. But he has CeeDee Lamb, DJ Moore, Pitts, Galladay, Higgins, Rondale Moore. And I guess his bench is a little iffy, but I like his team. So that
he's
makes
got
sense if he's like 4 or 5s.
he's got Fields coming in too now.
Kyler Murray's a stud. Fields, Ohio State.
Yep.
Another guy I couldn't get my greasy paws on.
Well, this is the guy I was telling you, the other Ohio State fan in the league. So this is going to
Sounds
be a year over year thing for you
I
guys.
do remember seeing it and being like, that's a little earlier than I would have taken him. But
Yeah.
when you know, you know.
Hmm.
Speaking of the marriage puns for today for Edwin, and
There you
you
go.
know.
Well, I'm no longer married to Adam Thielen. So
Yeah, tough breakup. Better than the Patriots TB12 breakup, as long as Travers doesn't win a title.
yeah, yeah, we'll definitely see.
It does stink for me though, because I kind of thought I had a better team than Travers. But now with that deal, I think his team's probably better than mine now. So that's why you got to be aggressive.
Yep. And I know we keep talking about it. And I think it's the most interesting thing in a dynasty is the landscape of the trade market. And when one team that looks pretty good makes a deal, it's sort of like the other contenders. It's like baseball, right? And that's what I think is so fun. Like you start to be like, all right, like he got better. I got to get better if I want to compete, you know?
Mhm.
And that's why I'm looking forward to the trade deadline. Currently scheduled for week 11, probably going to have a league vote to see if we need to move that up to make a decision so that people aren't going like full out, like, yard sale mode at the bottom of the standings. But I think the trade deadline is going to feel a lot like the Major League Baseball trade deadline now in our league.
For sure. I think we'll see every team but Edwin make a deal. And we're gonna have to, like let's see reactionary trades because I have to make a move now. If I want to compete, I gotta trade for somebody, do something.
Mhm.
So Travers shot across the bow, and now we got the arms race.
I do know I can reveal some certain prices from the trade market. And again, like I said, everyone talking to me trade always tell me like proprietary information does not go on the podcast. Otherwise, it's probably going on the podcast. I've heard rumors that Chris Carson has been offered for first round picks out there now after the Thielen trade.
Interesting.
Specifically between John's team, the Stefanski and the Fatty Cats had some discussions. Fatty Cats didn't want to make the move for the first rounder. So looks like that's the price that Stefanski is looking on Chris Carson if anyone in the league is out there looking for a deal. So he does seem like after Thielen, probably like the most available player, like in terms of that I have a price on from talking on the trade market. And a couple other small discussions I've had, but nothing really to that point. Carson, Marvin Jones, Melvin Gordon, I think are like probably the top players right now at the trade block.
Two questions for you. What's the difference in value between next year's first and the 2023 first round pick? Is that like a staggering difference in value in your mind, at least?
I think in my mind, it's like the NFL, I wouldn't say it's like a staggering, maybe like a 1 round type deal. Like a next year's first is probably to me worth what a this year's second is worth. Maybe a little bit more just because, like I said, with the rookies coming in, a first round pick is the top 10 rookies. And like how many of those guys are really year one, like contributors in fantasy? So a second has less value to me, but I would say as a rule of thumb, 1 round down when you go for a year later. It's just, I mean, we're just impatient creatures, right? Like I can wait for next, it's probably going to be after the draft. We'll just say May, for example, right? If we're doing the draft in May, like I can wait until May to use my first rounder. But if you deal for like a 2 years out, then you're looking like, oh man, that's like May 2023. Like that's a long time to see return on your investment.
Yeah, we all know how things can change. I'm probably most excited for the rookie draft, honestly.
Yeah.
That's why I was hesitant to give up my picks. Would have so a 2023 first rounder wouldn't have done it for Thielen, I take it.
Not yet. At the trade deadline, if that was like the best available, I probably would have taken it.
That's
But early in the season, I would have opted
right.
to not. I would have opted to continue trying to compete a little bit more and hold.
Makes sense. Other question. Did we figure out like a draft order thing? Is it going to be based off of this year's standings in reverse or something like that?
Yeah, it's so we're gonna do a little bit of an NBA style,
Okay.
and I definitely want to get the full league's input on this. I don't want it to be to the point we want to like discourage tanking. So 6 teams make the playoffs. So to me, the 4 teams that don't make the playoffs will enter an NBA style weighted lottery where like whatever we'll figure it out in terms of what makes sense percentage wise, but like maybe the last place team has 50% of like the chips in the hat or something, and we pick it out and kind of weight it for the first 4 picks. The remaining, I would say, follows regular season standings, and then the championship game. Those are the last 2 picks.
Makes sense. Because I was thinking as we get closer to the trade deadline, you see who's competing and who's not.
Yeah,
Maybe somebody's first round is more valuable than another
mm-hmm.
team's first round. So
For
that'll
sure.
be interesting to see. Because your first round could be the 10th pick or it could be the first pick. And if
Exactly.
it's
Yeah.
the first pick, then you end up with like, I don't even know. I've already forgot who was the first pick of this last year's draft. Oh my God.
Well,
Trevor
Trevor
Lawrence.
Trevor
So you end up with
Lawrence.
Trevor Lawrence, or you end up with Zach Wilson. So
Yeah.
it's like,
Right.
but
And then fantasy wise, I think Chise was like the dynasty, like rookie draft #1, just being like
really,
a potential future receiver
gotcha.
lasting longer. Being a super flex again, though, the quarterbacks are worth more. So maybe it would have been Trevor Lawrence in our league.
Someone like Kyle Pitts, huge value. That's part of why I like the Stefanski team a lot. See as him, I think.
Yep, he does.
That's so valuable. Like I have Kelsey, but he's freaking 32 years old. So
Mhm.
but yeah, it's good to know. It's gonna
And
get
then
interesting.
it definitely is. One thing I wanted to run by you too, rookie draft wise. So that's what we're thinking draft order. All of it will be announced, and like, definitely if someone has, an issue, like let me know, we can discuss and figure it out. But timing wise is interesting too, because do you want to do the rookie draft a few weeks after the regular draft? So you're sort of projecting, right? Or do you do the rookie draft end of August when people have earned roles and you understand that? I can see the benefits of both, where you're like accuracy is going to be higher end of August, right? Or if we do it after the draft, it's kind of like the NFL draft where like you think you know who's better, but there's a higher chance of you getting it wrong because training camp hasn't happened. These people haven't come in the door. You don't know who's a bust. You don't know who's getting injured. You have no idea what their role is. So
Right.
just something to think about for the league. I think I'd want the league to vote on that one, especially with I'm looking like I'm going to be a high pick at this point, and I don't want to make a decision for the league that benefits me. Like, obviously, I might be like end of August. That's great. I want to hit on this pick,
Right.
but I think it. I
Minimize the
guess
risk.
I would lean towards a few weeks after the draft, just for the entertaining, like you're projecting like this shouldn't
Right.
be a sure thing. Like you're like an NFL team. Like, yeah, I'm trying to think like ETN would have gone really high and you would have missed,
Right.
So
Like Jamar Chase, you said perfect example. He would have been like #2 pick if we did it right after the draft. In
yep,
August, he looked like crap. Everyone's freaking out about him. He's plummeting through draft boards, and he's a stud anyways. So
yep,
yeah, I mean we did the 2 QB to kind of make it more like an NFL mindset where
yep,
QB is priority. So doing it right after the draft is more consistent with that mindset, I feel like.
yep,
Plus, you get more flexibility with planning
mm-hmm,
if you don't kitty corner yourself at the end of August like you do with normal drafts.
yeah,
So you probably get more in person,
yeah,
COVID pending, in more in person activity
Sure.
if you get it earlier in the year.
Yeah.
So I guess I'd probably vote to do it that way.
Yeah.
So, and you could break it up. You could do it like a month after the draft, after a rookie mini camp or something.
Hmm.
So you have like draft excitement, then you have fantasy draft excitement,
Yeah.
then you have
Agreed.
fantasy draft season. It's
Yeah,
like spreading out the fantasy football goodness.
for sure. And
But,
it gives you some time. Like you can't do it too soon after the draft because then like we're not experts, you know. Like
right.
I want to give people time to like read the material out there, see what people are saying. The fantasy footballers have like dynasty shows in the off season, so like that sort of thing, which would make it really interesting. But one final point on this, John, like I think it'd be nice too for the teams that like do go far and have a later first round pick. It just increases your chances of like your preparation for the draft might help you hit, as opposed to end of August. It's like, I'm drafting a guy now purely for the future. He's not going to help me right away, you know?
Makes sense. So yeah, we'll have to take a vote.
Yep.
See what the people say.
For sure. Definitely. Well, I think that's probably all the time we have. I really appreciate you joining. I
Thanks
hope
for
you
having me.
I hope you make another appearance at some point this season or off season on the podcast. Good luck. I'll try to move you off that first spot in the power rankings. I know that's been requested.
If you beat me this week, you are not allowed to put me there for the rest of the season.
All right.
I got off to a great start last night. Robbie Anderson making plays all over the field.
Oh, I forgot about that.
1.3 points.
Oh, Jesus.
Feeling great about week 3.
Oh, boy. I'm sorry.
Robbie Anderson, what are you doing? Week 1 was so promising.
Yeah.
2 weeks in a row, he's a dud. They've just been killing teams, so it's kind of game flow that's not helping me out. But
actually could help you out with McCaffrey being gone. Potentially, maybe they have to get the receivers more involved, and good for my Terrace Marshall as well. Potentially,
their schedule will get harder. They've gone Jets, Saints, now the Texans. It's like 2 of the 3 worst teams in the league. So, but not a good start.
Yep.
Marlboro Dirt Dogs into the mud for a battle.
We're trying to get our first W.
Maybe I'll just trade for Marvin Jones. Cripple you.
He's available. You can cripple me mid. There's nothing wrong with crippling me mid matchup. I'm willing to sell.
Okay.
Well, John, you can hang on if you want right after. And I'll end the recording first. But thanks for joining, everyone. Thank you for listening. We look forward to seeing you next week.
Yeah.
From the All Aboard Podcast, Brandon DeFreitas, John.
We'll see. Thanks, Brando. See you tonight.
We'll see you next week.